Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here, president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, with a word on campus carry. First of all, it needs to be changed. Second, let's talk about the history of it just briefly. So for those of you who don't understand kind of where we came from and where we are now, you understand some of the beef that a lot of gun owners have with the current version of campus carry law. So it was initially passed in 2014. Okay, implemented on July 1st, 2014. So it's been over a decade. It's been a really long time. And our organization, which was fairly new back then, we had started in August 2012, was kind of like, hey, this law is really, really restrictive. Can we not do a lot better than this? Because the issue is, most of the time, once you pass a law, especially when it comes to guns, the legislature seems really, really hesitant to take it up again and do anything about it. And so we said, look, let's not do it this way. Why don't we do it a lot better? And if I remember correctly, we had drawn up a proposal for them of a much better version of campus carry, okay, which the liberal Republicans all rejected at the time, obviously. And so they passed this version, and it's not that it didn't have gun control in it. Okay, it was a better situation, I guess, than what there was beforehand, arguably. But there were still, and one of my biggest beefs with the law was that you couldn't have a firearm in your residence if you lived on campus. And to me, what's the point? I mean, if you reside off campus, I guess fine, because you can obviously have your firearm at home. But if you reside on campus, then you had to either not have a gun ever, or you had to lock it up in your car and hope nobody broke in and stole it or something. So it just seems like a really, really restrictive measure on top of a number of other issues. Primarily, for me, the preemption law says that the state has control over firearms regulations, and yet they did this giant carve out for the university board to be able to regulate firearms. And to me, these are public spaces. Private college, you can do whatever you want, obviously, but the public college or university, why should they get some special carve out, to regulate firearms? And so, not a big fan of either of those. Okay, if I had a choice when it came to campus carry, my ideal situation is it is constitutional carry on campus. That's it. That's what it should be. You have a right to self-defense. You have a right to defend yourself, and this is a public space, and clearly, gun control laws and telling criminals they're not allowed to come on campus is not working. It's not going to happen. So, to me, we can make the law much better. Now, that would be my ideal fix. An alternative, or maybe several alternatives, are number one, in the statute for campus carry, it says one of the exceptions to being, so right now, if you're going to go on a college campus as a student or faculty or whatever, you have to have the enhanced permit. Okay, and that allows you to carry on campuses other than two particular places. Number one, venues that hold or seat over 1,000 people. And number two, the dorms. Now, to me, for the life of me, how I don't even know that legally, it seems like that particular part of the law can be challenged, because it's your place of residence. It's where you stay. How do you not have a constitutional right to defend yourself in those places? So at the very least, the exemption for dorms needs to be removed. Now, if you just take out the wording for the dorm exemption, okay, then that means that you would have to have the enhanced permit, and then you could have it in your dorm. Okay, so that seems like the least we could do to help these people defend themselves. A young woman late at night has to walk from her night class back to her dorm or something on campus. And if you've been to a place like BSU, I don't know the layouts for ISU and U of I necessarily in the housing, but most of the housing for BSU, you're going to be walking down private streets and all sorts of other stuff late at night on a college campus. Seems like a terrible idea that woman can't take her firearm from her classroom to her dorm to store it safely so that she can defend herself. So that's the least that we can do. for those that are on college campus and staying in campus dorms or apartments or whatever you're going to call them. The other thing is, I don't like the carve out that the board has some special ability to regulate firearms. I don't understand why that's necessary at all. The statute's already there. Why can't the legislature determine that? Now, first of all, they shouldn't be able to either, because the Second Amendment says you have a right to keep and bear arms and without infringement. But setting that aside, if we're going to chop away at this thing, then remove the board's ability to regulate it. You're giving a whole bunch of liberal anti-gun board members for the university boards the ability to regulate firearms, which is a terrible idea, an absolute terrible idea. So my thought is, second of all, do the dorm one, and then tell the boards you don't have the right, you don't have the ability to do this. That resides with the legislature to make sure that these abilities that they have are not being abused. So those are the two smaller, I guess, ways to chip away at it. And in the end, for me, it's constitutional carry on campus. You have the right to defend yourself. So that's the end game for our organization. That's what we're going to work towards. It's a tough road to haul with campus carry, because so many people are just terrified of, oh my gosh, a gun in a campus, and how terrible is that going to be? And it's been 10 years and we're not having it's just like constitutional carry. There's not a bunch of kids just running on college campus shooting their professor because they got a C- instead of a B+ or something. I mean, all that stupid stuff that they predicted was going to happen hasn't happened. But I can tell you right now, you'd want a firearm if something was going down. In closing here, so I graduated from Boise State University. I got a bachelor's degree there in political science. And if you go to BSU, most of the classes, there is one way in and one way out. Okay, I mean, I think that's standard for probably most university I was at, unless you're in like a big lecture hall or whatever. But if you go, if you're sitting in those classrooms, and I actually had a discussion with our class and our teacher one time, and this might have been right after Virginia Tech, I think. I don't know. It was a college shooting where guns are banned, and I asked the class. I said, well, because we were having a discussion about firearms on campus, and I said, okay, well, who would be mad, or who would want guns on campus in BSU? I think was the first thing we talked about. And of course, other than me, nobody wanted to do anything. And by the way, I carried on campus back then, before there was a campus carry law. I was risking getting expelled versus being dead. So I took that risk. Anyway, so of course, nobody other than me thought that was a good idea. And so then I go through this scenario, and I said, okay, if there's a campus carry shooting right now, and this guy comes in and he starts shooting, nobody would want me to have a gun. And you can kind of see the wheels turning, and nobody really said anything. Nobody really was like, okay, well, maybe. I said, okay, so let's pretend this guy comes in and starts shooting people, and he shoots you and you and you, and I point to like 7 people. And I said, and I pull out my gun and I shoot him dead. Is that better or worse than if I didn't have my gun? And of course, I mean, these are college kids, but they were smart enough, at least most of them, I assume, to realize, oh yeah, that's actually a lot better than all of us dying. Okay, so then inevitably, because I've done these campus carry discussions on video and stuff before at other universities, and inevitably somebody says, well, yeah, but what if you accidentally shoot someone and kill an innocent person? I said, sure, okay, that is a risk that every gun owner understands. We all know that that's a very real possibility, and that we're gonna have to live with that if that happens. And that's a burden you carry and a risk that you have to understand as a gun owner. And so I said, okay, sure. If the guy comes in, okay, the bad guy comes in again, and he shoots you and you and you, and I pull out my gun, and it's just chaos, right? People are running around, people are scared, he's moving, and I go to shoot him, and I accidentally shoot you, and then he kills you, but then I finally shoot him and I kill him. Okay, so he's killed yeah, I don't remember. I think there's 22, if I remember correctly, in our class. So he kills 7 of you, and I accidentally kill 1 of you. Is that better or worse than him being unimpeded? And at that point, I think we had pretty much everybody but 1 person was still kind of like, yeah, I just don't want guns on campus. I'm just like, okay, well, I can't help you there, buddy. If you can't even see the logic of that, so, and then after that, it got in discussions about training and all that kind of stuff. And what if the cops come and they think you're the shooter? I'm like, dude, this whole thing is going to be done long before the police get here. Okay, if I have a gun, okay, if I don't have a gun, the police might get here in time to finally shoot the guy if he hasn't killed himself by the time they get here. But it's going to be a while. And if I have a gun, either I'm dead, okay, because he got me before I can get him, but I'm pretty positive that if I shoot and kill him, I'm not running around the campus with a gun in my hand. Okay, I'm gonna pull out my gun. I'm gonna shoot him. I'm gonna put my gun away. Okay, and then the police are gonna arrive. Sure, we're all gonna put our hands up until they figure out who the hell the bad guy is. But it's not like I'm running down the hall. I got him, because I'm gonna get my ass shot. Okay. Like that's going to happen. So just all these dumb scenarios, just these other questions they have. But at the very least, I got most of them to understand, like, okay, yeah, it would be a lot better if somebody on campus had a firearm. Nobody's gonna be mad. I even asked, I said, would you be mad that I shot and killed the bad guy? And of course, nobody was like, well, yes, I'd be super pissed. You killed the bad guy. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with campus carry. Huge supporter of campus carry. It just needs to be a much, much better law. It's time, way past time, to finally make an update to this thing. So if the lawmakers put out something and it makes it better, we'll support that. We're hopeful and talking to some lawmakers that there are some things coming that we can work on. That's our plan. So anyway, take care. God bless.